I got a new toy. This is a Brix meter, and what it does is it measures the sugar content in a liquid. So I am going to test this out on some things from the garden.
But first, let's talk a bit more about Brix meters, also known as refractometers. As I mentioned, they are instruments used to measure the sugar content of a liquid solution, and it is expressed in degrees Brix and measures the refractive index of a solution. And the higher the Brix value, the more dissolved solids and typically sugar are present. These meters use a prism and a light source to measure the angle of refraction and then calculates a Brix value. There are optical or manual Brix meters, but they require you to point it at a light source and visually look through the unit to observe the light and shadow line to determine the Brix value of your solution. And then what I have here is a digital Brix meter, and the light source on these are usually LED lights, and they also have a sensor to measure the refraction angle to give a Brix value reading. The optical Brix meters are going to be cheaper, and I've seen them typically run about $15 to $20, but I felt like the digital ones would be easier to use, and I've seen the price range from about $25 to $65, and I paid about $40 for mine because the really cheap ones had bad reviews. This meter that I have goes up to 55 Brix degrees. There are meters that have higher ranges, but for my purposes, I don't think I need anything higher than one that reads up to 55 Brix degrees. There's lots of uses for Brix meters, and they are typically used in the food and beverage industry, often for things like winemaking or brewing and jam making, and agriculturally, they are sometimes used to determine the maturity of fruits and vegetables to tell if they are ready for harvest. For me, I wanted a Brix meter mostly to test the sweetness of different tomatoes because when it comes to deciding which varieties I want to keep growing in future seasons, I do prefer to grow tomatoes that are on the sweeter side, but there is also a place for a tangier tomato. But I just want to be able to test my tomatoes and find the sweetest varieties that I grow. Also, I just think it's a cool thing to test. I am going to test a few things from the garden, but I am also going to test plain white sugar and a bit of frosting from a cake just to see what the readings are. From the garden, I'll be testing a fall gold raspberry, a blueberry that might be underripe, a strawberry, a very ripe plum, and two different varieties of tomatoes. So let's get started. First up is plain white sugar, and for things like this that don't have liquid in them, you do have to add some water to it for it to take a reading. So I'll put a good pinch onto the test area and add some water, and it is reading at 12.6. Next is some frosting from cake. When I ate this cake, it was really sweet. It was so sweet that I couldn't see straight, so I'll be interested to see what this reads at. And it looks like 51.6. Wow, okay, so yeah, it wasn't just me. That frosting was sweet. Next up is the fall gold raspberry, and we are getting a reading of 26.3. Okay, I feel like that checks out. Next is the blueberry, and like I said, it might be underripe. And it looks like I need to add some water to get a reading. I may have added a little bit of extra water here, so let me remove some of that. And it looks like we have 1.4. Wow, this is quite a low number, and even being slightly underripe, I'm still surprised at how low it is, but it also could be the variety as well, or maybe it's really not that ripe at all because I did have to add some liquid since it wasn't very juicy. Next is a strawberry, and I need to mash it up a bit more and get some more liquid for the reading, and it looks like we have a reading of 17.2. And I'd have to probably test a batch of strawberries because the first harvest of strawberries I had were really sweet, and this second flush of them I feel haven't been as sweet, but still I'm getting a good scale of test subjects, I think. Let's move on to the plum. This one is pretty ripe, and we have a reading of 14.3. Okay, I feel like that checks out. And now for the tomatoes. This is a sun sugar tomato, and I think it is pretty ripe right now. And let's see what it's reading at. 9.4. Okay, cool. And now let's test the second tomato. This is a Cherry Falls bush tomato, and it is reading at 9.3. All right. Well, that was fun, and I am glad that I tested the cake frosting because since it almost exceeded the range of my meter and I thought it was way too sweet when I was eating the cake, it did give me a good reference point. I do think it's important to reiterate that the Brix values can vary depending on the ripeness of what you're testing. So, riper fruits will read higher than less ripe fruits. And of course, there are so many different factors that can affect how sweet your produce is, like climate, soil, and more. So, everyone's results are going to vary a little. But I think this will still be a good tool to use, and I will definitely be using my Brix meter to help me decide which tomato varieties to keep growing in future seasons, and it can also help tell me which stages I like to eat certain varieties at, so I can know the best time to harvest and eat them. Because again, I like my tomatoes sweet, but sometimes if they are too ripe, I don't care for the taste. So this will be helpful to pinpoint all of that information, and I think it's going to be fun to compare different varieties as well as test other things from the garden. So I am definitely glad that I got this meter.